Hey there, Patriots. Hope you're doing well. This video is going to be a little bit more different than my other videos. For one, I'm doing something kind of new where instead of talking through a script, I am just, as the kids say, freeballing it. What I do want to do though, before the video starts, is I want to give a shout out to a YouTube channel called The Gaming Chad. And the reason why I want to shout this channel out is because a few days ago, or I should say he basically makes a PSA video saying that NightDive is aware that people want a remaster slash remake of Turok Evolution. So it is something up the radar, and who knows whether they actually might work on it in the future or not. No one's totally sure. Also, if anyone who watches this has any connections to NightDive or is in any way to forward this video to them, please do, because this video is very important to me, and I absolutely love Turok Evolution, and so I really hope my feedback and ideas for Turok Evolution Remaster slash Remake is somewhat helpful. So, yeah, please do that. And so I want to basically take this video. I want this video to be more of like a cohesive idea of not only what I want from a Turok Evolution Remaster slash Remake, but hopefully something that us as a total community can come together and sort of be like, hey, this is what we want from a Turok Evolution Remaster slash Remake. And right here in front of me, I actually have a bunch of notes I've written down. And I want you guys to tell me what you think of these notes, whether you agree, disagree, maybe even add in some of your own into the comments of this video. So the list I made goes from most important to least important. And the top of the list might be a little bit divisive, but I'm going to give my reasons why I think number one is the most important and why it should be done. So at the top of the list, Turok Evolution needs to be remade. So something akin to like the Resident Evil 4 remake or Resident Evil 2 or whatever remake you want to compare it to. And I'm going to give my reason why I think Turok Evolution needs to be remade rather than remastered. And again, I think it is going to be a little divisive, but I think the reason why so many people are like excited about a Turok remaster rather than maybe perhaps a remake is because they sort of live in this. I'm not trying to like shit on people by saying this. I'm trying to say this as real as possible. Like I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I'm also like just being as real as possible. But I think people live in this long past where they played Turok Evolution as a kid, and maybe they didn't complete the game, or maybe if they did complete the game, they don't really remember all of the troubles that Turok Evolution had. And see, I have those, I don't know if you would call them memories, but I have that knowledge that Turok Evolution, while I do love the game, I have massive nostalgia for it, I hold it near and dear to my heart. Turok Evolution, as much as I love it, is a mess that honestly needs to be remade from the ground up. And if you've watched any of my Turok videos, I've explained before what happened during the development of Turok Evolution. And maybe if you don't know yourself about the troubled development of Turok Evolution, a YouTuber by the name of Matt McMuscles made a excellent video on this. I will link it in the comments below, or not in the comments, the description down below. Highly recommend you check it out. It gives a lot more context into the troubled development of Turok Evolution. And because of that troubled development, from beginning and end of Turok Evolution, I think that's why it needs to be remade. The game is way too buggy. There are so many design flaws within the game. The levels themselves are extremely botched. The enemy AI is botched, but the whole game from start to finish is just completely botched. It's buggy. It would have been better if Acclaim had the time and effort they could put into the game, because Turok Evolution was supposed to be the love child of Acclaim and their love for Turok. But unfortunately, Evolution did not get the path that it should have, and unfortunately, it just flopped the way it did. It ended up being the death of Acclaim, unfortunately, and besides the 08 reboot, it didn't really leave a good image on the Turok brand. And so that's why I think Turok Evolution needs to be remade rather than remastered. Now, as for a remake, though, I have made some notes here, giving a better baseline in what I think should be done with that remake. And in the second part of my notes, I say, keep the same story, just fill the holes that were left. As I mentioned, Turok Evolution had a troubled development, and that also includes the story, unfortunately. In fact, if I can maybe find it, there was a video that someone posted that has, I think, like over an hour's worth of cut dialogue that was from the game itself. And this isn't like a bunch of like dialogue that's like cut here and there. No, it is cut dialogue from the story that is straight up over an hour's worth of content. So imagine if this wasn't cut, this would have been an extra hour of story for the game. And maybe if NightDive has the option to explore these cut files that were cut from the game, maybe they could re-implement them some way into the story. And the reason why I say keep the same story is because Turok Evolution, by design, was supposed to be a prequel to the original trilogy Turok games. And I've said this before in my videos, I really like prequels whenever they're very well done. And so I think keeping the story of what Turok Evolution was supposed to be as a prequel, I think they should keep that same storyline of what they were putting Evolution in. So like the war that was happening with the Dreg and whatever name of the society that Turok was fighting for, the rise of Tyrannus and his goal to take dominance over the Lost Valley, to even the main villain that was in the game. I think that should be kept in, and I think that should just be redone to fill in all the gaps that were left behind from Turok Evolution in the first place. And my third note is, do not remake for a modern audience. Now, it is a little bit vague, but I'm going to kind of narrow down what I mean by modern audience. And maybe for some people, modern audience might mean something completely different. But for me, what modern audience means is watering down the story and the game to a point where it's easily digestible, but it's not really unique and remembered by people that play it. So you look at traditional Ubisoft games. Usually these modern games are made for modern audiences. The stories are watered down. They play it safe. None of the characters are super exemplary. The enemies are kind of generic. The villains are also generic. They don't really have any goals or typical villain stuff that really like peeks out to you. And also, too, I hate to bring in politics, but the rise in the culture wars of like woke versus non woke, I think all that stuff really needs to be left out and just keep it a traditional Turok game where the story is just based around Turok and him fighting whatever evil forces are trying to take over in the Lost Valley. Fourth note I have is keep the flying levels, just improve them. Now, if you played Turok Evolution, you know that the flying levels are very controversial. People either love or hate the flying levels. I am kind of mixed on them. In the Turok video I made, I mentioned that the beginning levels are kind of fun. They're short, very simple, but kind of sweet. Nothing too intense, nothing too crazy. And then the further levels get really crazy. They get really difficult for absolutely no reason out of nowhere. And the later flying levels just kind of become bad. They start putting you in these very small corridors. They constrain your movement. They put an unbalanced amount of enemies that kill you very quick. And I think the flying levels, I don't think they're bad enough to be completely taken outright from the game, but I do think they need to be redone. The levels need to have a little bit more space in them, and the flying mechanics need to be improved a little bit more. They are kind of rigid. The game kind of takes away agency of control sometimes, and depending on your experience, they might not feel all that great. So some people like them, some people hate them. I'm a little bit mixed. I don't think they should be removed. I just think they should just be improved. In the next note, I say maintain the vision, pick up where they left off, and expand upon it. So it's almost kind of the same thing as keep the same story, just fill the holes that were left. Except whenever I say maintain the vision, it's a little bit more different and complex than just story. And as someone who thinks creatively, the way how I see like a vision of something is this thing that sort of like culminates all together to create sort of like one art piece. And with Turok Evolution, there were a lot of things that they wanted to add into the game. They just couldn't be done all that well due to Acclaim being a sinking ship. And I think that vision that Turok Evolution was trying to implement could be done now. So something that Turok Evolution tried to do is Turok Evolution kind of tried to implement sort of like these immersive sim type of mechanics into the game. And in Turok Evolution, there's supposed to be these dinosaurs in some of the maps that roam around that have their unique AI to them. They sort of have like their own goals, and like each map sort of has like its own way to complete it. And I think that would be really cool to be done with Turok Evolution and sort of revitalize that vision that Turok Evolution had. I think it would make the game stand out a lot more than its three predecessors, and would really add on to that Evolution title that they were going for. Another vision they were trying to sort of implement also was a little bit more emphasis on stealth options. And where you can really see this is, I think it's in maybe chapter 4. It's in part of that, it's in part of the game where you go into this, like this slag base, and there's supposed to be stealth, but it's not done very well. And I think that vision of sort of having like an optional way of going about tackling like these objectives and tackling these areas in the level with that sort of like stealth element to it. I think if that's implemented well with the AI adjusted properly, adding like actual stealth mechanics to make this thing viable, I think would be really cool and really awesome to see implemented well with what Turok Evolution was trying to do. And again, the flying levels were sort of another vision to kind of change things here and there, to add a little bit of variety and spice to, again, how you complete levels and play through the level, play through the story, to get like different perspectives on the world of the Lost Valley, whatever it's called. I keep wanting to say the Dark Valley because I've been playing a shit ton of Stalker recently, so if you hear me stutter trying to say Lost Valley, that's why. And in my next note, I say remake the game 1-to-1 from the original and take liberty in areas left blank. So again, sort of piggybacking off of Note 2 and Note 5. But the reason why I want to sort of emphasize this is because I don't want a Turok Evolution remake to be like a completely different game. I want the remake to be a sort of revision of what Turok Evolution was supposed to be. Sort of like a revitalization of what the original vision was supposed to be. And I think the only way that can really be achieved is if you remake the game nearly 1-to-1. And as in the note, NightDive Studios can take liberty in areas that were left blank. Maybe in areas that Acclaim did not expand upon. Maybe in areas that they were trying to expand upon, but just really couldn't. Or in areas that Acclaim never dabbled in with. So you could say like maybe in some of the levels, maybe some of the levels that are maybe a lot shorter than what they should have been, NightDive can take liberty and add in like new areas and like new objectives to play around with in some of the levels. Maybe some parts of the story that were left blank or weren't developed all that well, NightDive can take liberty in that, and they could improve upon it. They could maybe add a little bit more to it. They could do something with the story and maybe add a little bit more cohesiveness and maybe add a little bit more consistency with the story. Maybe they could add on new villains. They could add on new characters that fight beside Turok, so on and so forth. And in another note I wrote down, and I think this one's honestly pretty important also, and that is use the original soundtrack. And the reason why I put this in is because I think out of all of the Turok games I've played, Turok Evolution might honestly have my most favorite soundtrack out of all of them. And this might be an unpopular take, but I think Turok 2008 might be second place for that. But the reason why I love Turok Evolution soundtrack so much is because it feels very primal. It gives a certain feel that no other video game soundtrack has really been able to like put on me. And there are tons of games out there that I've listened to their soundtracks and absolutely love. I think Borderlands 1 and 2 might be two games that might have my most favorite soundtracks of all time. But Turok Evolution is like definitely up there in that area of greatest soundtracks of all time. And so I think it would be a disservice to not use the original soundtrack in the remake. And now this one I wrote down as optional because, to be honest, I don't think it's really necessary to have in the game. But it would be kind of nice and would add a little bit more fun replay value to Turok Evolution. But that would be to have local and peer-to-peer multiplayer. Now we know that the original Turok Evolution did have split-screen multiplayer, and people did have a lot of fun with those. But of course, in the modern era, local split-screen multiplayer / co-op isn't necessarily common a whole lot. And I do know that networking for like peer-to-peer multiplayer is quite a bit of a challenge. And so that's why I sort of wrote this down as optional. But I do think it would be kind of fun for me to get some of my friends and just blow each other up and just murder each other in a fun Turok video game. And then the other one I wrote down is make dinosaurs more integral to the game and or story. And the reason why I wrote this down is because all the Turok games have dinosaurs in them, but they're not super integral to the story in any way. They're just kind of there for you to shoot, and they're not very common. The Turok game that really made me appreciate this was actually Turok 2008. I really love how integral the dinosaurs are to the story and world of that game, and I really love how integral they are to the gameplay loop. And so I would really love that in a Turok Evolution remake. Because the only time I really remember killing dinosaurs in Turok Evolution is like the first couple levels, because you kill those raptors near the beginning, and then at the beginning of Chapter 3, you fight a T-Rex mini-boss. And so I think it would be really cool to see more dinosaurs play a part in the story of the game. So I'd really like that. It would make Turok feel more like a dinosaur game, like what it's supposed to be. And then the other one I wrote down, and I think this one's honestly pretty important too, don't make the same mistake as Acclaim did and rush it. And I mean, it's quite obvious, and granted, I know Acclaim didn't really have any other options but to rush it, because again, Acclaim was a sinking ship. Developers were being fired left and right, so it's not really Acclaim's fault why they had to rush it, but at the same time, don't make that same mistake and rush the game and fire your employees. I'm not trying to shame NightDive. I think they're a fantastic studio. They seem like they're a pretty healthy, confident studio. But just to kind of throw it in there, don't rush it. Take your time. Do whatever you need to do with it. And this one is sort of a given, but make the game feel like Turok. And again, it sounds kind of obvious and it's kind of a given, but sort of kind of going back to don't remake for a modern audience, make the game feel like this was designed for the original fans of Turok. Don't water down the story, don't water down the characters, don't water down the gameplay. Make the game feel like Turok. Make the game as gory and as visceral as possible. Make it fun. Make it fun to shoot the dinosaur people. Make it fun to shoot the dinosaurs themselves. Make the weapons really cool. All that good stuff. Now, this is one probably not a whole lot of people are really going to care about, but it is kind of one I care about since I really love things like concept art, being able to access, special things that the game doesn't need, but just having that extra bit there is just always kind of nice. But allow us to access concept art, character models, etc. As I said, it's something I really do like is whenever games sort of add in the extra bone of being able to access the concept art for the game, accessing the character models and getting a look at them. I really like that stuff, especially coming from someone who is getting into game development. I think it's really cool to look at that stuff. So yeah, I would like that. And now this one sort of harkens back to make dinosaurs more integral to the game and story. But something I would also like to see is add more varied dinosaurs to fight. So as I mentioned in the original Turok Evolution, the only dinosaurs I really remember fighting are the raptors and the T-Rex. Maybe there's some other dinosaurs I'm forgetting, but I'd really like to see more species of dinosaurs in there. So maybe you could add in the Dilophosaurus, that's pretty common, that you see in a lot of dinosaur games. Maybe other forms of raptors, maybe like Utah raptor, other different types of raptors. Add in other medium-sized carnivores like Ceratosaurus, Allosaurus, Maybe a Suchomimus might be cool. And like for the large dinosaurs, you could have, keep the T-Rex in there. Maybe throw in a Spinosaurus. That would be kind of cool. Maybe add in a Giga, a Carcharodontosaur. Add in dinosaurs that aren't very common in traditional dinosaur games. So it would be kind of cool to see like other types of dinosaurs. And last but not least, bring the Turok name back from extinction. And this one pretty much piggybacks on every single post or note that I have mentioned here. I know that any of you who are watching this video right now are just like me and are mega Turok fans. This game has probably been a part of your childhood since forever. And probably you also are sad to see that Turok has basically been a dead IP for legit nearly 20 years. So I want it back. Of course, I would totally be happy to see a Turok Evolution remaster / remake to sort of be like a revival to the original Turok games. And hopefully it leads to a new Turok game. I don't know if that will ever happen, but who knows. So man, that was a lot for me doing this unscripted. So hopefully I was somewhat coherent to you. I have a super active brain, so it's actually really hard for me to maintain focus when I'm not using a script. So hopefully I came across as somewhat coherent. And whether you agreed or disagreed, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. And also, if you have your own list to add on to this, make sure to add it down below also. And again, one more time, I want to shout out the Gaming Chad for basically being the cause of me making this video. Every time I say this, I tell myself this is going to be the last time I talk about Turok. And that has been like 3-4 times I've said that. So, I don't know. Maybe this won't be the last time I talk about Turok again. I've said it before. I hope it's not. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching. And I shall see you when the next video drops.